just
Well, that's why I think, especially with externalization, our goal would be, at least metaphorically, to ask a Nazi over for dinner. And your goal is, how can you be in the presence of somebody whose worldview appears so blatantly repugnant? And how can you be in their presence in such a way, and the opposite of externalization with mentalization, how can you get some sense of why they're saying or doing what they're doing?
Right.
Doesn't mean you need to believe it,
Right.
but this notion that somehow you should punch a Nazi in the face. Actually, that's the most anti-American thing you can do, because if we are truly a bastion of democracy, Nazis should have a place to be able to be Nazis as long as they're not messing with anybody else. As long as you're not messing with anybody else. But the goal would be, so how do you invite the Nazi in for dinner and lean in and get a sense of, and so the externalization doesn't happen. And that's where asking the uncle, how's your dog? But the next step would be with someone with ideology, just to get a sense of, well, help me to understand why this is important to you.
Right.
What does this mean to you? And so if somebody starts telling you, and we'll use the Nazis as an example, let's assume they say something to the effect that the world is getting worse and worse, and because we've neglected natural racial purity, we're all going to die. At the core of that is fear, right? We talked before about primary and secondary emotions. And the secondary emotions of hate, of envy, of disgust, there's a primary emotion that's beneath all of that, and that is fear. And there is a place that you could begin to mentalize and at least humanize the individual in a certain way that you might be able to navigate your time with them differently. Mm-hmm. So you don't step away from the conversation with hate, but you might step away with sympathy, even sorrow. Right? Mm-hmm. You could say, I really feel bad that this person is trapped in this way of thinking about the world in such a way that, a holiday meal with somebody who is very different from you gives you a chance to be able to practice love in a way that you couldn't otherwise. Doesn't mean that and it takes us back, if you can see them a little clearer, if you step away from that encounter in a place of hatred for them, or just rage that they exist, then you've been diminished. The very thing that you dislike them for, you've suddenly become that yourself, right?
Right. And there's such a wonderful feeling, too, that comes along with that understanding, and that, being in that position where you're about to accept some new information, and you're not going to belittle this person. You're just going to kind of get to know what they're behind some of their thinking and how they react. But there's something empowering about that particular stance.